we will begin at 2:40. We are still waiting for our guest speaker to join this Google Meet. Thank you.
Ya, selamat siang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Selamat siang. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Very good, very good. What about you?
Yeah, we are doing fine here.
Yeah. How is Perlis?
Pardon?
How is Perlis?
Yeah,
Nice
already.
video, right?
Yeah, it's a hot day today in Perlis. And everyone here is busy marking because this is exam week.
Sure. So everyone is busy, yeah?
Yeah.
The same here. But we've just finished everything, including the marking, so it's a bit much free at this time.
Yeah. So we will finish marking everything and we are waiting for our semester break.
When is that good news starts?
When is it, Tina? When is the semester break?
August?
For us, it's still examination week. And yeah, we are actually busy marking and keying in the marks. Yeah, but many of the students are already off. The last paper, I think, was last week. We did this week, yeah. Yeah.
So you're busy, Dr. Ina, yeah?
Keying in the marks, yes.
I'm done.
The usual bread and butter, yeah.
Should we call you Dr. Udi or Dr. Samanudi?
Udi or Pak Udi?
Oh, Pak Udi.
That's
Okay.
really perfect. Yeah. The burden is becoming, much heavier when you call me Dr. Udi.
Oh, okay.
Just call me Udi or Pak Udi, okay?
Okay.
So how many are joining? I think there are some colleagues of mine from Untirta who is also joining, and also colleagues from the international office. So they just want to see me performing. They say,
They're checking your performance.
and I'm becoming more nervous.
Okay. So
Just
when
kidding.
did you join Universitas Sultan Ageng Teresa?
Many years ago, when I was still very young,
But you are
I
still young. How young are you?
very young.
Very young.
Well, 15 years ago, yeah, more or less.
Oh.
So I joined the university in 2006 or 7, yeah. But yeah, around that year, yeah, 2006,
Oh,
I think.
okay.
Yeah. So quite long time
Yeah.
working at the same university. I'm super loyal.
You can come and visit us here.
Sure, sure, very
Yeah,
happy.
one fine day.
Yeah, sure, sure. I saw it on YouTube already and looks gorgeous. Yeah. Beautiful building, campus, super large.
Dr. Tina, shall we start now?
So all the participants are students or also academics.
It is a mix actually.
All the participants are students
Did
or
I
also
forgot to switch on my mic just now?
Yes.
No wonder I was speaking by myself. Okay. Yeah, I think we can start now. It's already time, and I think the crowd. Yes, it is about this because actually our university is engineering university, and this topic is very much specific to those who are starting to write journal research articles, getting acquainted with the citation practices, and we're talking about postgraduate students and also for language. There are not many of us in Minimap actually. Yeah. Yeah, not that many. We're actually under the same faculty with other social sciences like in business, psychology, and other human sciences. Okay, so Dr. Udi, I think that's it, the ball rolling. Going back to Miss Lisa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ina. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will start now. Sorry. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Liza. I am your moderator for this afternoon's session. Welcome to the seminar series organized by the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Humanities, University Malaysia Perlis. The title of today's seminar is Applied Linguistics, Citation Practices in International Research Articles. The talk will be given by Associate Professor Dr. Udi Samanhudi. But before we proceed, allow me to give a brief introduction on our speaker. Dr. Udi Samanhudi is currently an associate professor in the field of English education at the Department of English Education, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa in Banten, Indonesia. He completed his doctorate degree program at Queen's University, Belfast, UK in December 2020 in the area of teaching English to speakers of other languages, TESOL, and applied linguistics. His research interests includes critical thinking skills enhancement in English education, academic literacies, language assessment, genre analysis, discourse analysis, and academic writing. His research articles have been published in both international and local English journals such as Compare, a journal of comparative and international education, the Journal of Asia TEFL, Excellence in Higher Education Journal, and others. His recent work in collaboration with Dr. Butt of Queen's University Belfast, entitled From Academic Writing to Academics Writing, Transitioning toward Literacies for Research Productivity. And this has been published in International Journal of Education Research. So today, we will listen to this talk by Pak Udi, or Dr. Udi, and this webinar will focus on examining the rhetorical articles, rhetorical citations in research articles in international journals. Okay, so I am so excited because I also did TESOL, I did applied linguistics, and now I am also doing PhD related to discourse analysis, move analysis, and so on. Genre analysis, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, I will stop sharing now.
Right. Thank you very much, Miss Lisa. Such a comprehensive introduction about me. And Dr. Ina, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm super honored to be in this forum, having an opportunity to share the project that I'm currently doing with a colleague from Queens, Dr. Aisling Boyle. Okay, so again, thank you very much. Now, allow me to share the slide. Okay. Right, let me check if what I have on my screen is exactly the same on yours. Is it the same? First slide?
Yes, yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me start. Right, the title of my presentation is Citation Practices in International Journal Research Article and Applied Linguistic Perspective. There are a lot of perspectives that we can, of course, use, employ when we are analyzing a text, for example, but perspective this afternoon that I bring is from an applied linguistic perspective. As I said just now, this is actually a tiny part of my research project on research article writing for publication purpose among novice writers in the fields of applied linguistics. So my focus on citation is because some people still say that citation is something easy. You can do citation on your work without trying to understand better what is actually citation and then what theory behind the use of certain citation style. But to me myself, citation analysis has informed, and I have learned myself from the analysis that I have been doing with the research articles published, especially in the international journals, that really informed my citation practice up to this time. So that's the reason why, after discussion with Dr. Ina, we decided to focus on this element of citation. Now, I need to help you to expose a little bit to the context where I'm currently working. So I'm working for almost 15 years, as I said, in a public university called Universitas Sultan Hasanuddin Ayasa. So if you are in the capital city of Jakarta, to the western part, 72 kilometers, it will take around one hour and a half. You will be in our campus. So this is one of the campus location. The integrated one, the administrative center for campus. We are located in 4 different locations, but what we are showing you on the slide is one that where I am now. Okay, so it is called as an integrated campus located in Sindawasari. Right, before we start, I think it's always good idea to start being engaged each other. So I have very broad questions related to citation in this article, and then I want to check whether or not we have similar understanding about why citation in this article really matters. So to respond to this, I would love you to write it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, your virtual hand, and then say with me, why do you think citation really matters in an academic writing, including in a research article for publishing purpose? So we'll spend 3 to 5 minutes for this activity. So now feel free to write down in the chat box, or just raise your hand and then share with us why do you think citation play a very important role in academic writing. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, Dr. Udi, or shall I call you Pak Udi?
Pak Udi ya?
Pak Udi, lebih mesra begitu. To me, as an academician, I think citation is very important because it gives us a point of reference. Whatever knowledge we want to share, whatever knowledge we want to build, there must be a point of reference because that knowledge doesn't exist just like that. So if you produce something without any citation, it will be number one unwise lah, and above all unacademical lah, and then people will be very difficult for people to check whether whatever you say is okay or not. That's why citation is penting lah. It's very important. It's very paramount in order to build your academic eminency. Something like that. That is based on my opinion. Thank you.
Great. I call you Muhammad.
You can call me Ismail.
Ismail. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pak Ismail. Yeah.
Yeah, Pak Ismail.
Right. As a point of reference, a text is a form of dialect. So if there is no reference to other text, so it's not considered as a text or an academic text, right? So that's why we need citation in order to show reference where or what sources do we refer in the development of the text. Okay, we are producing. Great. The next, please. So in the chat box, to show off, I read good articles and cited my examiners. It's quite tricky, but that's a good idea, yeah? Cite your examiner's work, so you will pass very soon. Very good. Our statement become more valid with citation. That's true. It's all about the validity of our statements in the text that we create. All right, that's cool. Others, please raise your hand and then share with us. Why do you think citation really matters in academic texts? No more trial? Or it's too easy? Right. It's all about validity, it's about point of reference, okay? Because an academic text is a form of dialogue between writer and readers. So during the production of an academic text, including research article, we always need to think about this issue. Okay, so to show that there is a dialogue between what we write and what others have written before, citation could be a means for that, to show that we read and then we could justify the validity of the information that we provide in our work. Okay, that's why citation do matters. I agree with you. Right, so that's the opening. Right, so I'm trying to open, the dialogue with you as early as possible, because during the presentation, I really want you to, raise your hand and then ask me a question if you want. If you think that's the right time for you to ask the question before you forget, so please, you can interrupt, okay, and then ask the question directly to me. Right, so this presentation outline will be, of course, started with the aims. Okay, I have aims, that's why I'm here, having this presentation this afternoon time. And then a little bit about the background and then theoretical perspective on citation, okay? And then question and answer. There are also some studies that I will highlight more in order to show you which type of citation that is mostly employed or used by writers whose work are published in high-ranking international journals in the field of applied linguistics. So my aim is very simple. I want to provide a better understanding of the rhetorical citations. As I said, citation is methods. So it matters in the perspective of applied linguists, because it is through citation we can show to people the validity of our work. We can also show to people that we have read literature that inform us about the topic we are writing. So we will be called as an expert writer because we have gone through the process of long literature review, so that we then find out the topic and then write it, develop it based on what we have read. And the second one is to provide an exploration of perspective of the research article writers in the field of applied linguistics. I do not bring a lot of evidence concerning the perspective from the novice writers that I interviewed. I only put two citations that link to what we are discussing this afternoon, which is about citation issue and the practice of writing for publication. Right. So the conduct of my study on research writing for publication practice among novice writers in the field of applied linguistics has been much influenced by these two intriguing questions. So, what makes an article influential? And then why do some articles have enormous impact on the field and others practically none? So I was thinking about, the answer to this question, and then I'm much helped by reading what White said about the manipulations of rhetorical elements and then the interactive features of the text. So then my understanding is growing, and I said to myself, it will be very useful when we conduct a study that is focused on providing insights on how a certain research article in a certain specific field is written. So then the very broad idea of this research that I'm conducting is to provide these insights. So I want to share, as previous researchers have done, how a research article in the field of applied linguistics is written. So my analysis is not only on citation, therefore. I focus on how the text is organized by finding out the patterns of mood. And then I also concern the criticality element within the text. So people can learn about the elements of criticality that is played, that is performed by writers whose work is published in high-ranking international journals. And then citation is another element that I analyzed. Now, if you see, at least in Google Scholars, there are a lot of studies that are conducted by genre analysts or by applied linguists concerning the rhetoric. Okay, and then the main aim of such study is again to provide insights, to provide a better understanding into how a certain research article in every section of it is written. All right, we can focus on, for example, the rhetorical strategy of hedging. So there are a lot of studies on hedging, but in a certain context, probably in our field of applied linguistics, there are not many yet researchers who really concern on hedges. So we can take this as an option of our future study. Point of reference, we speak about citation. So citation has been an issue, okay, from at least 3 decades ago, and up to this time today, citation has been the center of research of many genre analysts. Okay, because there are a lot of theories developed from the study that concerns on citation. In my later explanation, I'll show you that every field has a different characteristic of citation, and then we will see what is the most used or the most used approach of citation in the field of applied linguistics. Now, if you see, this is, I think, an interesting, study in the field of corpus genre analysis, which is, trying to reveal the informality elements of research articles. So Ken Hyland and Jiang are very, smart in trying to figure out on whether or not academic writing is now becoming more informal by analyzing the informality elements within the text. You can read it, okay, you can download it and try to figure out an issue.
Dr. Udi, sorry for interrupting. Could you please enlarge your slide, or you can start slideshow? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding.
Yeah.
So if you see this one, 2022, we are still exposed to a research study that is concentrating on citation, which again, um, something we can conclude that research on citation is something that is still vital and urgent to do by students who consent, genre analysis or corpus-based analysis. So question regarding why research article, why should we do research on research article? I think the answer to this question is quite easy. First and the very first, it is one of the important element in the academia. So if we want to get a promotion as a lecturer or as an academics, we cannot do anything. We cannot have that promotion if we do not try. And then another issue why research article is an object to study because it is the genre of knowledge production. The academics would always love to talk about knowledge production. What kind of novelty do research or studies on genre analysis have already offered so far? And then it is through research article we can see that novelty. But if you see again, okay, the results of genre analysis on research article is basically to provide insight into how a research article in a certain field is rhetorically organized and written. So that is the point we as researchers in the field of applied linguistics could contribute to our field or could contribute to academics from other background of knowledge or background of academics. We can, share our results of genre analysis on research articles written by engineering people, for example. So we can share our analysis with them so they learn something about how the rhetoric or how the research article in the field of engineering is mostly or typically written. So that's where we can play a role as a genre analyst or as an applied linguist. Another question will be around citations. Some of you may ask, like, there are too many studies on citation. Okay, there are a lot of studies have already been done by researchers regarding citation. So what else? Well, in 2022, okay, the one that I highlighted in my previous slides, people out there still do analysis on citations. First, this indicates that citation is developing, and then the variation of the use of citation in different fields is something interesting to further study. All right? And then second, as I said before, academic writing would always be a dialect. So when it is a dialect, means we will always involve citation practice. And then there is always that possibility for the citation practice to develop from time to time. And then this development of citation could be another issue that we can further research. What we find today might be different from what we find in the future. All right, the practice of citation is super dynamic. Okay, my conclusion from the study might be different if I do almost similar focus of study in the future. Okay, so this is an evolving area for us to study. So citation would always be an interesting part of the writing process that we can, examine closely through research. This is an issue, okay? In the very opening of my presentation, I said, well, citation is something that everyone can talk about, okay? But what is forgotten is that sometimes, yes, we know the word citation, but the question is that, are we citing appropriately? Are we citing in line with the convention or norms of our field? Okay? So that question should always be examined. We need to always think, yes, citation is important. Knowing how to do citation appropriately is even more important. That's why the analysis on citation practice in academic writing would never outdate it. Okay, so a theoretical understanding of citation is surely vital. Okay, simply knowing is not enough. We need to know in depth. Okay, we need to know better what citation is, the types of citation, the function of citation, so that we are theoretically informed. And then later on, when we start producing that academic text, we would always think about this theoretical ground that will guide us in the process of citation. Okay, in our work, of course. Now, types of citation. If I asked you whether or not you are familiar, I trust that most of you are familiar with this type of citation. And then the definition, if we speak about definition, about this integral or non-integral citation, which are the types of citation according to Swales 1990, is easy to memorize. Okay. Integral citation is when the name of the authors appears in the sentence itself. Okay, and then this is divided into two broad categories. One is called verb controlling, and then the other one is naming. Okay, so this is the theory behind citation practice. There is something we call types of citation, and according to theory, citation in terms of type is divided into two. One is integral, which consists of these two smaller part, which is called verb controlling and the naming, with the example that I have provided here. Okay, so this is a typical of verb controlling, integral verb controlling. Okay, when the center or the agent is the author. Okay, when it is made in the form of noun phrase, it would typically belong to naming, integral naming. And non-integral is when you, for example, put all the author's name and the year of the article's publication at the very end. Okay, assuming that before you put all this, you are doing an analysis. So you combine the thoughts, the ideas of authors who have similar thought regarding an issue. Citation function. If you check in Google at least, okay, in Google Scholars download research articles that discusses citation, there are a lot of theorists, okay, who share their understanding about citation function and then the definition of citation function. I'm using or referring Patrick's citation function. This is one that is more comprehensive. Okay, so I'm referring to this because to me, the citation function by Patrick has given me a lot of ideas in terms of categorization of function of citation. It's not simply because of the numbers of function of it, which is more than 5. There are almost 8 to 9. But because it provides a much comprehensive analysis of functions. So this has also been employed by previous researchers, and I'm referring to those. Okay. So I will not read one by one, but what is normally applied in most research articles, journals, is the attribution. This is the very first function that is put by Patrick. Because when you write, even in the second sentence of your paragraph, you would attribute to other authors. That's what we call as pointing or point of reference. You are trying to refer to someone's work in order to build the validity and credibility of your work since the very beginning of your writing. Okay, and then there is another function called exemplifications by making that citation as an example. All right, and so on and so forth. Because the slide is with you, so I think you can read it yourself. But what I would like to highlight by showing you this slide is that understanding the function of citation will be very useful when we write, because then we will think which function I'm going to do. Is it to attribute? Is it to evaluate? Okay, so by understanding this, you will be very careful in the practice of citation in your work. Okay, any question or issue that you would like to share before we continue to the next journey? If no, then we'll continue with the next slide, which is learning from my study, that I will compare then with what previous researchers have found regarding citation. So this is a small part of my study and as links that we have published recently in the Journal of Teaching English for Specific and Academic Purpose. So in that journal, we put two discussions on citation in Indonesia-based journals and international journals. But for this webinar purpose, I only highlight one that we found from our analysis of research articles in international journals. So we need to clarify the big term that we use here. Okay, we call applied linguistics, and there are a lot of definition about applied linguistics. And then this definition, of course, will then guide to the choice of research articles in the journals. So we are referring to Cook 2003. Okay, the definition of applied linguistics according to Cook is that the umbrella term, which is a broad term of applied linguistics, which includes wide-ranging areas which are concerned with problems in the real world in which language is implicated. So the point is actually here, problems in the real world in which language is implicated. So there are areas that can be categorized into applied linguistics, such as teaching and learning, critical discourse analysis, genre analysis, pragmatics, and so on, as you can see on the slides. All right, so that's where we start. We start with an issue of definition of applied linguistics from Cook, and then we then search research article in the areas that belong to applied linguistics. Now, this is also very important. Our understanding about the academic writing has been much shaped by our understanding about the science or the academic knowledge in different fields. The typical of research articles written for harder sciences like engineering, medicines, will be very empirical and objective. Will be a linear growth of knowledge, experimental method, okay, more concentrated leadership, highly structured genres. Okay, so you can imagine, or if you have an experience of reading text, hello, yeah, of a research article from medicine, I trust that it will be very much different from the one that is written in this area, in humanities. Okay, more fluid discourses, more varied wordings, explicitly interpretive, and so on. So from this, we will start to understand that a discipline, harder science and softer science, would have their own way of, producing and presenting their knowledge in the form of academic writing. So in a research article, that is why there are a lot of studies by genre analysts that try to provide insights of how research article in the field is written because of this issue. Every discipline would typically have their own way of presenting the knowledge they have gained from the research. So the journals in the field of applied linguistics that we selected are these 5. Okay, so this selection will be based on the reputation, accessibility, and the impact factor. So I'm sure that you are very familiar with, if you are from the field of applied linguistics or TESOLs or English language, okay, or language education in general, you have been, very much exposed to these journals, and then we are referring to this in selecting research articles in the fields of applied linguistics that we analyze for the purpose of this study. Okay, so this is what interesting about small size corpora. We collected 50 discussion sections. Okay, the small specialized corpora refer to a corpus of texts of particular type, such as research articles in a particular subject. So because this is very, very small number of corpora or corpus, then we do the analysis manually. Okay, so compiling small size corpora is considered better than large corpora in this kind of study context, as it aims to provide insights into learners and teachers with specific learning purposes. Okay, so my understanding is that the outcome of my study with Ashlyn would inform the practice of research writing for publication purpose. So if you have an ESP class, for example, so the result of this kind of study will be very useful as trust. Yeah. And we specify into very specific section in the research articles. We focus on discussion section. Okay, so the reason why out there, if you Google, there are a lot of studies that have been done by genre analysts focused on the introduction. So the introduction dominate with little attention paid to discussion section. So this is our claim, okay, as supported by previous researchers who also concern discussion section. While at the same time, if we read a research article, we will agree to say that this part is super challenging to write, because we need to state claims about how our findings integrate with and contribute to the disciplinary knowledge. So we need to bring evidence and then discuss the evidence, okay, that we gain from data in the discussion section. So understanding how to discuss our finding is more than important, okay? So that's why we concern discussion section. Though in another stage of our study, we would also focus on other sections, but for this presentation purpose, I focus on discussion section because of these reasons. Now, what Aisling and I found, okay, so this is quite interesting, because most research articles discussion that we analyze employ the non-integral citation type. So this is quite reasonable, and I'm happy because this analysis confirmed what I thought before, because integral is quite simple, while non-integral is quite critical, because you do the process of analysis, you combine different thought into one, you combine the same thought from different researchers into your own voice. So then it quite makes sense if those writers in high-ranking journals would normally put non-integral citation type or practice this non-integral citation type in their piece of writing. All right. With the integral naming as more dominant one, again, if we say which one is more complicated, is it the integral for controlling or integral naming? Of course, the integral naming, because it concentrates on the nominalization. Okay, so that's why it's considered more complicated, and it is mostly practiced by writers in the journals that we analyzed. And for the function, yes, we found attribution as the most dominant one. So it is very likely that writers in high-ranking journals still try to connect their work with previous researchers. So attribution is the most dominant one, and then followed by comparison with other sources in order to compare and contrast. So it's quite makes sense, all right? And what a little bit surprises me is that I do not find evaluation as the most dominant one, because the criticality element of a research paper could be seen from this evaluation function of citation. So if we do more evaluation, the piece of writing that we produce will be considered having a high criticality element. Okay, but what surprises me is that even in high-ranking journals, attribution is still the most dominant one, followed by comparison with other sources in order to locate their finding between other sources. So to me, this finding still makes sense, and yes, evaluation is also there, though this is not dominant. But my thought before the analysis was that evaluation will be number one, because criticality and high quality research article would be one that employ more evaluation function of citation rather than others. But it's wrong. Right, but still it's in a high number of use for research articles that we analyzed. So this is the example of attribution. When you practice the non-integral citation type, you are actually dealing with the function of attribution. You attribute what you say to others, okay? And then comparison with other sources, when you try to locate where your finding is as compared with what is found by previous researchers or authors. So what could be inferred from this finding? Discussion section in the analyzed articles in this study were found to suckingly synthesize various sources by making greater use of non-integral citation. All right. So by this, I'm going to highlight that the practice of or the use of non-integral citation would make your research article writing more academic. Okay, because putting non-integral citation in your work is actually reflecting the ability, your skill of synthesis, which is hard. When you are trying to bring different voices into one, or when you are trying to make comparison between what you find and then what others have found. Okay, there is a critical process in making a package of statement. Okay, in your academic writing that really shows your readers your capacity as a writer. Okay, so this is so much in line with what Hyland and Feng in 2017 have also found, that in high-ranking research articles that is published in high-ranking journals, most of the writers would normally employ non-integral citation in their work. And then what could be inferred regarding the function, as we see that there are attribute and then compare with other sources as the most dominant ones. So this has brought further evidence that in soft sciences citation, including in the fields of applied linguistics, citation is used to advance the credibility and the acceptability of the proposed claims by especially expert members of the discourse community. So you are writing a piece of text in order to be accepted by the expert members of the community. Say we are writing for publishing purpose, the expert members would be the reviewers. So the way you persuade them in order to accept rather than reject your work is that by playing with this citation type and function. So that's why a theoretical understanding about citation is super important. So it's not simply copying what other people or other writers have done, but we do that because we have the ground, we have a solid understanding of the citation, okay, theory in the context of academic writing. Right, so as I said, there is an element called human participants in this study. We try to bring more comprehensive data in our research not only textual analysis but also human being perspective. So the reason why we include novice writers here because their voice has been much ignored. Most of the studies on research article writing, when we are seeking for the voices, okay, from human participants, they would normally go to the expert. Okay, the experts could be the journal reviewers or writers who have written millions of research articles, many research articles. But then we take another different point of view. We believe that novice writers bring with them the experience of writing. Okay, so we want to know, we want to understand their practice of academic writing for publishing purpose. So there are questions actually that try to help us understand the context of their writing, and then try to help us as the researcher about the challenges they encounter when they're writing a research paper for publishing purpose. Okay, there are a lot more, but what I think relevant for this presentation is the idea about citation from their own perspective. Okay, so one of the challenges to our understanding after analyzing the data is that when writing a research paper, they have problem with citation. Why? Because they say they are still having lack of understanding about the citation practice, and they are not well exposed to kinds of good example of research article writing, so that they don't have more repertoire of understanding or knowledge about how a citation should actually be done, or what kinds of citation could actually be used when they are writing. So a typical, if you want to know a little bit about our analysis to research article published in Indonesian local journals, most of the citation used are integral citation, which means that it is in the simplest way of citation that they employ. This could be because they are having lack of understanding about citation practice, as reflected in this data that we brought from the interview we conducted. And also this one is very interesting when Theo said, when I write, I tend to use citation that support my finding or my ideas, but also try to find out contradictory ideas so that I can show my position between the two. I do this because I know that when I only cite those which support, the discussion will be so narrow. With the pro and contra, our writing would sound more critical. So this person has broad kind of understanding about being a critical academic writer. So the idea that citation should be brought into classroom and then should be taught by the teacher is real. Okay, in order to have the understanding like what Theo has already said. Okay, this understanding is super, because with this kind of understanding, the citation practice will be more dynamic and richer, because Theo has been much guided by his understanding about what we call as a critical academic writing. So what we conclude from this tiny part of our study, discussion section in the International Journal analyzed in this study were found to succinctly synthesize various sources and make greater use of non-integral citation. That's what we can underline here. Non-integral citation has been used by most of the writers whose work is published in the International Journal. And then the dominant use of the citation function, which is to attribute and to compare with other sources, has brought further evidence that in soft sciences like applied linguistics, citation are used to advance the credibility and the acceptability of the proposed claims by especially expert members of the discourse community. So we cite because we want to get this acceptance. So that's in a simple word I can draw from the second conclusion of this study. And then the interview that we conducted with these novice writers have actually said more than simply understanding how the text is analyzed, but this would also brought into a more serious strategy of teaching students with the writing of academic for publication purpose. So they can develop a material that is informed by the challenges, okay, including in terms of citation practice of most novice writers that we interview. So developing, for example, a module called research writing for publication purpose will be very useful so that we can help our students, okay, at the postgraduate level or undergraduate level into how write academic piece of text for publication purpose. All right, so that's all. I think this is the time for us to have question and answer and discussion. I know that this is just a super tiny part of my work with Masling, so there will be a lot of things to explore, and then there will be more and more understanding about the practice of academic writing, and then the perspective of novice writers in the field concerning writing for publication or publishing purpose. Thank you very much. Back to the moderator.
Okay, yes, Dr. Udi, thank you very much. Okay, now we will move to the next session, which is the Q&A session. Okay, those who have any question, you can write the questions in the chat box or in call messages, or you can ask the question, unmute and ask the question. Okay, so Dr. Udi, we have one question from Muhammad Kasturi Nur Abdul Aziz. Can you read the question? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, it's very hard question to answer. If your emphasis through these questions is about collaboration, I think that would be a very superb idea. Excellent. A genre analyst like us will be much helped, okay, by having a collaboration with somebody or an expert of the field. Okay, for example. When we concern citation practice, there is always an intention of the writer. Okay, so when I do citation, I know that I have my very personal intention why I do citation in a certain way. Okay, so then I still need somebody from the field who might have different understanding about citation. Okay, probably the intention of doing citation in my field is a little bit different from somebody from the engineering. Okay, the way they think about citation and then the intention of doing citation in their research work might be different. So I need to make sure that what I have in my talk is similar to what they have. So I think it's very good idea if we can have collaborators from somebody in the field. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, Dr. Kasturi. Do you have any other question?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Message from Safinur. The registration link for the seminar will be provided at the end of the session. Okay, now we have the next question. Do you plan?
One of the outcomes that we plan is to have a research-based module on research article for publishing purpose. So the informations that we gain from the study would inform that module we are going to develop.
Yeah, it's a good plan. Maybe you can collaborate with Dr. Ina Suryani on
so
the
won't
teaching
only
modules.
cover citation, but probably other elements that we also analyze, like the organizations of the acts. So that will be part of our attention when we are developing the content for the module.
Yeah. So it is useful for all researchers. I mean, all researchers from any areas.
True.
Yeah.
True. So genre analyst work will always be very useful for everyone who concerns academic writing, because, as I said before, we provide insights into how a research article in a certain field is written and developed. An interesting issue will be about the criticality elements in a research paper. Every journal reviewer would sometimes say your writing is less critical. Okay, and then we have questions like, what is actually critical? What elements of criticality could we show or could we perform when we write a research article? Well, this question cannot be, answered directly, but we need to really bring evidence from research, because I trust that every field would have their own way in showing the criticality. In the fields of applied linguistics, for example, the criticality could be shown through hedges. So if I'm using modality, in saying something, so I'm critical in the context that I'm trying to play with words. So if I say this may mean that will be different from this means that. Okay? So the reason why I use modality, I use may, for example, because I want to mean something else rather than simply saying this means that. Okay, so that's part of the criticality element when we use hedges in an academic writing, like research article. And in different fields, the case might be different. So that's why genre analysis that concerns criticality issue or criticality elements of a text in different fields is still super important. And I would really suggest that master's students or PhD students consider this, okay, in their research, if they are interested in doing genre analysis.
Yes, now we have the next question from Madam Zaleha. How
Yes,
do
please.
we write in the chat box? How do we write to point out the weaknesses in others' arguments and aligning themselves with a particular perspective, especially to show the research gap that we intend to take up? Maybe you can give advice on this difficult intention. Yeah.
Well, that's quite tricky, because in every research we always need to show readers that there is a gap, there is a problem, there is weaknesses, okay, with previous studies. That's why we do this research. Okay, so what is important to support the making of this gap is again citation. Okay, because we are speaking about citation, so I will show to you how citation play a role in showing this gap. So there is always a debate. When we are speaking about, for example, a criticality element, there are lots of voices out there that concerns criticality, and then there are studies that concern criticality. And then you bring all this into your background, for example, and then you try to show from those there is one lacking element that is left under research. So you then say something about this gap, that this study, okay, as suggested by X, Y, and Z, expert A, expert B, expert C, is super demanding for the research. So that's the general picture of how a gap is built through citation. So you can play your understanding about citation, okay, into this making of gap. But the point is that when you are trying to show the weaknesses, you show to us the element in that area that is still untouched. Or even if, yes, it is already researched, only few studies concern that element. Okay? I don't know if it answers your questions, but they how I respond to your question. Let me know if you think I haven't responded to your question successfully.
Yeah, okay. So next question.
Yeah, Muhammad Ismail Yusuf, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Udi. Again, I would like to ask a question, but my question is a little bit different. I'm not going to ask about the technicalities of the citation. I'm going to ask your opinion and your experience. People like me, I'm not a linguist. I'm a social science. My field is political science. Okay, but I have many colleagues among the linguists in UNIMAP. Sometimes we try to sit down, try to talk and discuss, having a discourse, what type of collaboration we can do for our research to bridge between political science and linguists. Sometimes we've been sitting hours in the cafe drinking our Starbucks for hours. We still cannot find a solution. So I would like to ask your experience. Maybe you have experience in Indonesia, perhaps. Those who have the field of political science, how do they work with linguists, and which area, which approach that they can do research together? Maybe that can help us here also. Thank you, Dr. Udi.
Okay. I haven't had my personal experience myself, but I just try to use the common sense when we speak about academics. Okay, so university life cannot be avoided from facts. All right, so we can start from talking about text. The text that is written in the field of social science, in political science, might be different from the one that we write in, in the faculty of education, for example. And then we can notice what similarities and differences between the text that is written in the faculty of education and then the text that is created by those working in the fields of political science. So that's on the level of text. We can start our discussion from that. The second one, the second one is on the level of human participants. We might see academic writing is important, all right? But the way I see academic writing and from might be different from the way my colleagues from political science see about academic writing. So we can talk about this. We can start the discussion from this, and then we'll find out, more and more ideas on what to do. Because when we speak about the science, though both are social science, but the nature of each is different. So find out the similarities and differences, and then we can start from that. Okay. So a much more practical example of research that we do interdisciplinary is the development of tourism village in Banten area. So in these groups, we have somebody from English department, and then from economics, from agriculture. We speak about tourism, but when we speak about the programs that we develop within this research project, everyone has different idea. For example, from language person, they speak about how to empower people through language, because they are in the tourism area. How can we empower the local people with English, for example? So we speak about how teaching English for tourism purpose. We are developing, modules on that area. And then a colleague from economics is, having a different point of view. They speak about how to manage and empower the local people selling, souvenirs, for example. So they use the knowledge of budgeting and so on into the program, but still under the same umbrella, which is developing the tourism village in that area. So I think we can start from everywhere in discussing what to do jointly between ourselves from certain field with other colleagues. But again, the issue around text and the human perspective would always be very interesting to start the discussion. So
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you.
That's what I can answer. There's no right and wrong answer.
Yeah. We will discuss this by having a coffee. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you.
And a bit from my hands-on experience about tourist village development. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ismail. You can have a coffee later at Starbucks. Okay. Do you have any other questions? I have one question. Okay. This question may not be quite related. it has become a trend that some writers, when they are writing their research articles, they cite their own research articles or maybe their friends' research articles.
Yeah.
So, what is your opinion? Um, if you say it's okay, how many percent? I mean, how many papers can we like cite? Okay.
Yeah. So if you get back into slide number 5 or 6, okay, that I showed just now in my presentation, there is one article published in 2022 which concern the self-citation. Okay, the question is when is enough for self-citation practice? Okay, because when it is too much, then we will do a kind of self-plagiarism. Okay, and the question is, so when is enough when we do self-citation? The answer is when enough is enough.
Okay.
So when it is over, you cite too many of your previous studies, you will be trapped into this self-plagiarism. Okay, so there is no like certain fixed numbers that you need to really put into your own. Okay, when you refer to your own work before, but just use our make sense. Our sense. When it is okay to have only 5, why 10? Why 20? Okay, because your work will be very dominant there. But if the issue is on whether or not self-citation is allowed in our work, that is super allowed. The thing that we need to consider is that the numbers. But if you ask me the exact numbers for self-citation, I don't have the answer, but use our logic. Okay, when it is too dominant, we will be trapped into this self-plagiarism. So be very careful. Okay, so if you are a PhD student doing research on genre analysis, I think this is an area that we still can further explore through our research, which is very interesting.
Yeah, okay. So now we get the answer.
Yeah, when enough is enough.
Yeah, we can self-cite. Or
Yes.
maybe I cite you, you cite me later.
That's the common practice, okay,
Yes.
in academia, so there's no problem at all, as
Yeah.
long as it is not too much.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
problem is that when we cite too much of our own work, it seems like we are, very egoistic person. You just want to tell people, well, this is me who knows everything about this citation field. That's why, guys, I put all my work here. Well, that's not the issue in academic text. Okay, we need to be very careful with the self-plagiarism issue. Okay, but still, self-citation is super highly allowed. There's no
Yeah.
problem.
Sometimes for novice writers, especially, they have to self-cite because they have to increase their H index. Yeah.
Right. True.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking this time. I'm going to cite my own work. When enough is enough. Don't make it too dominant.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe when other people read our research articles, they will cite later.
Yes.
Yeah.
True. True.
Next, I will type this question. My husband wrote this question. Actually, he
Thanks
is the
for
one.
that's really important information. Which you ask?
Yeah, my husband should be the moderator for today's session, but our son has a ping pong tournament this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, so this is question by him. I do not know. This Anna Moreno.
Okay. Yeah. If that question is about citation being used to promote research, yes. There is always that intention. Okay. Last time I wrote a paper with colleagues in Rabat, um, a paper on academic literacies. Okay. And then I asked him, why do you put your books there? And then he said, this is, a shortcut to promote my books. He was not doing what we call as self-plagiarism because he only quoted, 2 books that he wrote. But he cited that book that he wrote because he wanted to promote it. At the same time, he's publishing his research article. So citation closely linked to the idea or to an issue of promotion. Okay, so if you do this when, as I said, when it is, not that much, not too much, you are, having these intentions of promoting yourself, your work into or through your research articles, which is fine, which is really in line with the purpose of doing citation itself. In theory, it is yes. So if you try, to understand better the issue of citation, theory of citation, one of the reasons why we do citation because we want to promote other people's work or our own work that we did before. Okay, so there's no problem at all. That's part of or a means of promoting our work. Yeah, Miss Lisa, that's my response.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So do it. You promote your work and after your
Yeah. Okay. Next. Do you have any other questions?
no more. Yay!
Is that enough? Do you have any other question?
I think most of the important questions has been addressed by Dr. Udi. Thank you very much. We kind of think of possible collaboration maybe in the future because we have a number of students working on genre analysis also, and but we have a lot of engineering people who are doing on citation and data analytics. So I hope that this will sort of give them an idea of possible cross-disciplinary collaboration. And we also have people from mathematics like Dr. Kadri Juno, our friend from Institute of Mathematics, and a few others. Monjuki also very much into citations. So maybe we can explore on that, inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Udi, for coming
You're
in.
very welcome. You're very welcome.
Overview for applied linguistic research. Yeah.
I also have some colleagues from the English department here who have, expertise in genre analysis and literature. So if you think you would have time to speak with us, collectively as department, we will be very happy to have that kind of talk.
Yes, I think my colleagues would very much like that. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Nice.
I think that's a good wrap up, yeah?
Yeah.
Back to Salam.
Okay, so I think that's all for today. Okay, before we end this session, I'd like to thank
Picture.
associate
We have a
professor.
picture.
Oh, yeah, we have a picture first. Okay. Could you please turn on your camera so that we can take a picture, snap a picture. This is like a proof. It is very important for our documentation. Okay. All right. I will like to change my layout. Okay.
Happy, are you there?
Okay. More coming.
Okay, let me do that again.
All right. Okay.
One moment, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Smile.
Okay, because we have the next page. One moment, yeah. Next page. Okay, one moment, yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got it. Okay, thank you everybody.
Okay, again, thank you very much everyone for joining this webinar. And especially to Dr. Udi Samahudi, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. Maybe you can come and visit us in Unimed. Or we go there for vacation.
For some poet.
Yeah. So
And thank you to our Indonesian friends. Can see a number here. Thank you for
Yes,
joining
yes.
us.
We have head of department here, Rahman Hakim, and then colleagues from department, Ibu Aisyah Hamidia, Bu Eri, and some
Hello.
others
Yeah.
have already probably left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. See you again next time.
yes, inshallah, see you again. And we are looking forward for more collaboration later, inshallah.
That's the head of our department. Thank you very much.
Pak Rahman ya?
Yeah, Pak Rahman. Yes.
Oh, the head of department. Okay.
So we can speak about, next event.
Yeah, please fill in the form, for our e-certificate. Yeah,
Sure.
we'll email you the e-certificate.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Rahman, thank you ya.
Ya, selamat.
Pak Rahman, terima kasih.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Pak Rahman.
Ya.
Thank you. Amin.